everyone, and welcome to the Writers Class. Winona's not here with me again today. It feels so weird. I got to say like the whole beginning. I'm Jade. Wow, I think I like doing this show by myself. Don't tell Winona. It's a secret. I'm just
the session or at the end.
Oh yeah, we had to stop it, right? Because obviously my cat just wanted to like knock over my earbuds and connect it with my computer. So yeah, I think that's about as kooky as the ladies can get today. So I'm gonna just go ahead and talk about our books. All right, so we wrote The Literary Life Guides of Pop Poetry, and I thought Divorce Was Bad with Other Life Lessons, and I thought Being Grown Up Was Easy. If only I were me, a memoir and verse. The Widow's Web series and Floor and Coffee, all available where you get your audiobooks, and you can check out one of my favorite books, And I Thought I Did My Journey Alone, on www.andithoughladies.com. But you're not here to hear about me and my cat-related stories. You're here to hear from my wonderful guests. Wonderful guests, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. I'm George Weinstein. I'm the author of 6 novels and counting, and I'm also the executive director and 2-time former president of the Atlanta Writers Club here in Atlanta.
Wow. I mean, first of all, how do you wear all those hats? Like, how did you have time to do all of that and write 6 books?
Well, I don't sleep very much.
Well, I can understand that.
Writing is all about sacrifice, as you know. You're always giving up something to do your writing.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about how you knew that you were going to be a writer. When did that moment just like happen to you?
You know, as soon as I learned to read, I wanted to write. When I was 6 years old, I was writing plays for my stuffed animals to act out on top of my bed to entertain my brother and sister. You know,
wow.
Giving them lines and having them act and all that. So I have always wanted to write, and I've always written. Wow.
So did your brother and sister think you were like the best brother ever?
They thought I was the weirdest brother ever. But you know, it's just that morphed into science fiction, short stories, and eventually I turned to writing historical fiction, mysteries, thrillers, and that kind of thing.
Okay, so how did you get from science fiction to historical fiction, mystery thrillers? Like that's kind of a little
that's
bit
a jump.
Right,
yep.
Yeah.
And I think that came with maturing and just changing in terms of my writing taste. So, you know, I used to like those pulpy, you know, what they used to call dime store sci-fi novels, and then, you know, I got introduced to more serious literature, and you know, so my taste changed. Not to say there's anything wrong with sci-fi fantasy, because I still read that too, and I write a little bit of that, but I decided early on that I wanted to write whatever moved me rather than sticking to a specific genre.
So how did that help or hinder your publishing journey? Because if you're not sticking to one genre, most publishing houses want you to do your one thing into
it. Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, it's been a blessing and a curse. It's been a blessing in that if I'm doing a book signing at a bookstore, whoever walks up, I probably have something, you know, across my list that they might be interested in. So that helps. On the other hand, readers tend to not diversify as much as my writing diversifies. So, you know, a lover of mysteries and thrillers might not also be a lover of historical, or a lover of sci-fi, or a lover of something else. So they don't tend to follow me from book to book. I have some, you know, some fans who will read anything I write, and God bless them, but most readers, you know, kind of silo themselves, and so that's been the hindrance, and so that's why I advise people not to do what I do. You know, most people, if they want to make a career as an author, really ought to, for a good long while, specialize, you know, in a either the same genre or adjacent genres, at least mystery thriller, mystery suspense, that kind of thing.
That's very interesting. Do you have any ideas how you could get a reader from your sci-fi to read your mystery? I mean, because you seem like you said you have a few people that do it. So
Yeah.
how did you get them to make that switch?
Well, it's simply because they like my style, you know, and they like, you know, they trust me as a storyteller, and so they'll go on whatever journey, you know, I spin out. But you know, that's that, you know, that's really the challenge of wearing a lot of genre hats. And it's not something I necessarily recommend. It's just something I do because I have a low threshold for boredom.
I like it. I like it. So we talked about these books, but you haven't named any of these books. What are your titles?
Yeah. So in historical fiction, the first book I wrote in historical fiction is called The Five Destinies of Carlos Moreno. And we can talk about each of these in turn if you want. The second one, my best-selling book, is Hardscrabble Road, Southern historical fiction. I just finished a sequel to that, which will probably come out as The Return to Hardscrabble Road or something like that, something boring. When I was working on it, my working title was Scrabble Harder. So then I do mystery and suspense. Mystery title is Aftermath, and suspense thriller that came out most recently is Watch What You Say. And then I also wrote a domestic romance called The Caretaker. So again, very different. Why did I do that? Well, because there was a story I kind of latched onto and thought, this is a story I want to tell. I don't care if it's not like anything else I've ever read.
Wow, that is super.
Uh-oh, your cats are back.
You know what it looks like.
Okay, my cat did again, and I put it now on the top of the cabinet. Not find it. She will not find it today. Hi. Attention. She wants attention. Okay.
Yep, I got a cat at my feet right now. And he's winding around my feet. I'm thinking, oh, don't pull out this cable, please.
Right. And it's just one of those moments, right? Any other time, please get away from me. But when you're doing something, I need to be right here with you.
Yeah,
what are you
doing?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Touch me. Pay attention to me.
All of that. All of that. So your best-selling novel, tell us that title again.
Yeah, it's Hardscrabble Road. And it's very Southern historical fiction set in the 1930s, 1940s, about a boy who's growing up, son of sharecroppers, just the poorest of the poor. And most of the stories in there are based on true story, based on my first wife's father and his growing up days in South Georgia. He had a childhood that would have killed most of us. It was incredibly difficult. Hardscrabble Road is a physical place. It's a real place, but it's also a really good journey metaphor for his journey through childhood. You know, it was a very gritty childhood. His father was an absolute psychopath, and his mother had no interest in raising her children. So he and his brothers and older sister pretty much raised each other.
Wow.
But at the same time, it's an inspirational story because they all get through it, and they all get through it with grit and heart and humor, and they were really extraordinary people. And so I wrote the book to honor them, but it's really connected with a lot of readers. Done a lot of book club talks, over 100 book club talks on it, and that's why I wrote a sequel to it. And here's my cat.
There's your cat. Look at
that. He will not let me alone right now. So
no, that's how it is. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna jump. We absolutely don't do segues on this show. So here's my jump. We're gonna swing now to talking about writing conferences and why authors should go to these things. I mean, why should we spend our money and go to a conference and sit all day? Why?
Yep, absolutely. There are several reasons to do it. One of them that often gets ignored and kind of given short shrift, I think, is just the network and the accidental conversations that you're going to have with your fellow writers. You have no idea who knows other people who can connect with you and change your life. And those accidental conversations don't happen if you stay home. you gotta be there. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, when it was so bad that we couldn't do in-person writing conferences, those connections were lost for a lot of people. So I'm really glad that like the Atlanta Writers Conference, which I run twice a year, and our new Atlanta Self-Publishing Conference this April, that these are going to be live in person, because they give people a chance to have those accidental conversations like, I'm looking for an illustrator. Why, I know the best illustrator on earth. Really? Who's that? And all of a sudden there's a connection made and somebody gets something that they didn't even know they could get, just by having a conversation and taking a chance. So that's a reason that often isn't discussed or ends up as like number 6 on a list, but I think is one of the most important reasons for going to a conference. Obviously, the most important thing you can do at a conference where you have agents and publishing editors, the acquisition editors, is to make those contacts and get your work seen by professionals. So with the Atlanta Writers Conference, we're really, really proud of the fact that after almost every conference, at least one person gets a representation contract or a publishing contract. And we've had, some extraordinary success stories. One of our writers, Becky Albertalli, got her agent through the Atlanta Writers Conference. He sold her book to a major publisher and then to the movies. And the movie Love, Simon, which has now been turned into a TV show, is based on her book. So it became a hit book and then turned into a hit movie and now a hit TV show. So all of that came about because she attended, in my case, the Atlanta Writers Conference, but, could have happened at another conference, perhaps, so that's why you go to conferences, because there's the opportunity to make these amazing connections that literally change your life, and actually not just her life, but her children's life and probably her grandkids' life if the money holds out,
Absolutely. Wow,
Yeah.
that is an amazing way to think of it. But now we have to talk about the self-publishing conference. Let's talk about why have one?
Well, because let's see, we're on our 26th Atlanta Writers Conference, and it's always been traditionally publishing focused. But there are more and more people every year are self-publishing their books. And we want to teach those people how to do this right, because it's a business and you have to do everything now for yourself. You just don't have to be a great writer. You have to, be a great marketer. You have to have a great business mind, because it's a business, and you got to treat it like a business. So we're bringing in really high quality speakers who've done this, who can walk the talk and, can teach participants how to run this like a successful business and what all you need to do.
I love it, because we are self-published. I mean, obviously, no one's going to publish some pop poems, literary life guides with pop poems like that. That's a risk, y'all. That's a real risk. Right. And yes, and we always talk about that. We always talk about this is a business. Like you have to think about it like a business. And yes, it's for the craft. Like, don't get us wrong, please. Editing and please beta readers and please all of these things, but it still is a business. So you have to think marketing, you have to think branding, you have to think all of these things that maybe if you went with a traditional house, maybe you didn't have to think about them, because that's what they do. This is why they get part of your money when you sell a book.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, and the editing and the great writing and all that is really just part of producing something that, will sell, right? That's your product. Absolutely. And so you have to do that just as well as Apple makes great phones. You've got to make a great book.
Absolutely. And I just love that you're having a self-publishing one, because that's amazing. Conference is so amazing. Okay, so now we talked a little bit about your books. We talked a little bit about the conference. Is there anything else you want to talk about? And if not, I have some more questions.
Well, I want to encourage people to find, if not the Atlanta Writers Club, which has been around since 1914, believe it or not. So, now 108 years. Mm-hmm. If if you don't join our organization, find an organization of writers to join, because nobody will understand you like another writer will. Those are your peeps. So, that's your tribe. And it's important to be around people like yourself. Most people, if you tell them, hey, I was, woken up at 2:00 in the morning by these voices in my head, because I have this character who wants to be the main character in my book, but he's just a secondary character and he's really pissed about it. And he woke me up, yelling in my head saying he deserves a bigger role in my book. If you tell that to just a general member of the public, they will come at you with a butterfly net. They'll want to lock you up. They'll think you're nuts. If you say that to another writer, they say, oh, I'll do you one better. And then they'll have a story like that,
Absolutely. I cannot tell you how many times I have woken up in the middle of the night like, oh my goodness, that's a great poem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, oh, okay. And Winona at this time would have told this story. So I'm going to tell the poet. So we were supposed to be writing another And I Thought Lady's book. And these characters just wouldn't leave her alone. And every time she went to write a poem, it was like these characters.
Knocking on her door.
Right, knocking on the door. And she's like, I can't, we have a deadline. And I said, just write the story that wants to be written, because we're never going to make deadline if you keep ignoring these people. They need to have a conversation. Let them have a conversation and be excited about it.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, I'm going to do it the quickest way possible. And then she was just like, I'm going to write a script. And she wrote a script, and then we had like a table read, and that's the Ladies Tale podcast.
Yeah. Ta-da!
Ta-da! And
yeah.
But if you tell a person in the public, they'll be like, well, why didn't you just do what you had to do? Because you can't. You cannot. If they are speaking, you cannot. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's critical for writers to find, people like themselves, find their own tribe. And so there are countless writing organizations all around the country and online. And I really recommend people give those a try. And you might not find the right one the first time, but you keep trying, you will. You will find your people. And all of my best friends now are people, who I met through the Atlanta Writers Club. My second wife, she is somebody I met through the Atlanta Writers Club. I've run a critique group for about 20 years, and she joined the critique group a dozen years ago. And we were just friends for a number of years. We were both going through a divorce, and, she admitted that she'd been in love with me for a while. And bingo, I'm married again, and I'm married to my best friend and somebody I met through the Writers Club. So
that is amazing.
These organizations literally can change your life. And by the way, this is the second marriage that's been created through my critique group.
Wow.
So
wow. I feel like maybe I should have signed up Winona.
People don't think about critique groups as singles groups, but they really are very effective.
Yeah, when Winona watches this, she's gonna be like, no, Jade. Give
it a try.
Well, anyway, so I would ask my advice question, but you already gave such great advice. But I am gonna ask if you have like one or two more pieces of advice for people that are trying to just write and make it maybe not their living, but something that they do, their hobby, their side hustle. What advice do you have?
To me, it's all about butt in the chair. You got to just put your butt in the chair and do the work. And like we were talking about before we started recording, it's all about sacrifice. You're always giving up something so you can write, because there are 10,000 other things you can do with your time, and they're all equally valid uses of your time. And so you got to tell your family, I can't spend this hour with you because I'm going to write. I'm just going to carve out an hour, and that's my time. You have me the other 23 hours a day. This is my time. And so you have to give up time with your family. You have to, give up time doing your other favorite things to do, because you've got to get the writing done. The writing is not going to write itself. It's the only way it's going to get done is if you give up other things. And that, to me, is the hardest thing for beginning writers to kind of internalize, is that willingness to give up and sacrifice for something that is very lonely and very frustrating and very hard to do. There is there are few things harder in life than taking these abstract thing called words and stringing them together in such a way that they make sense. And if you're doing it right, make people feel something. It's really hard to do this, but it's so satisfying if you can. I mean, when you write a poem that makes somebody laugh or cry, even if you're making them cry, it feels really good because you have done magic, you know. You have taken these abstract words and made somebody feel something.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, so that was just amazing advice. So where can people find out more about you and then the conferences that you're putting on?
Yep. So my website is just my name, George Weinstein. That's WEINSTEIN.com. So GeorgeWeinstein.com for me. And then on the Atlanta Writers Club website, that's AtlantaWritersClub.org. You'll find information about the club, annual contest we do, our conferences that we talked about, critique groups, all kinds of things.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and like bearing in there with me with my cat that wants attention and keeps knocking over my earphones. I appreciate that. And I'll just go ahead and wrap us up. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andithoughitladies.com. While you're there, go to the middle of the page, see the charities that we probably support. Maybe you can support them also. We thank you in advance for that. And just remember, y'all, wisdom is all around you if you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love from Jade and the missing Winona. Oh yeah, thanks for listening.